Better believe it. Well, Deputy Chief Mark Perez, representing Professional Standards Bureau, along with Commander Richard Webb, the Commanding Officer of Internal Affairs. And before we get into the actual presentation, what I'd like to do is for the public that's listening and watching, contextualize what we're about to do. Because in the past, historically, what we've done is answered the question, how many sustained complaints do we have on racial profiling complaints? The answer has been, over the past few years, 0. That's created some questions in the minds of people as to whether the investigations are being properly done or whether there is something else afoot. In answering that question, what we found is that there are other matters that are even broader to consider. For example, is it true that only the Los Angeles Police Department has that kind of finding? That is, that out of so many hundreds of complaints of racial profiling, there are none sustained. So what Commander Webb is going to do in part today is to describe some of the research that the police department has done, Internal Affairs in particular, on that very question. Richard Tefenk, the Executive Director, will answer that question from a completely different perspective. And Dr. Lori Friedel from the University of South Florida, who's a nationally recognized expert, will talk about racial profiling in an even broader context. And part of the reason that we need to talk about it in an even broader context is that if it is the case that nationally racial profiling investigations are next to impossible to certify, either to say that a sustained complaint is possible or that the not sustained complaints prove that it didn't happen, then what will we do? It's a very interesting question because typically we expect of investigations to be able to certify an answer with relative ease, that there would be a technical response, be a technical means to achieve that end. And I think what we will find here today is that that is not the case. But what is the case, we'll talk about in almost a presentation of evidence manner. The next thing that the public needs to recognize is that part of what we are looking at, in addition to the investigations after the fact, is what is going on before we get to the investigative stage. Training, dealing with the public, etc. Commander Webb will discuss that as well. So without any further ado, let Commander Webb get into the details of this. I will be sitting with him in case